Up, down, left, right. What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV. Today I'm continuing the How to Train Your Dragon remake content. I found a bunch of interviews with the director, Dean DeBlois, and some of them had like 1,000 views or something, so I kind of wanted to hear him talk about it. I saw some comments on my review of the film proper, saying that he only really wanted to do it because they were going to do it anyway, and he figured, well, I might as well get a bag for it, which I can respect. It's not about like ragging on the dude. I'm more ragging on the studio system and how cynical and business focused they are and how they just don't really care about the integrity of stories or filmmaking, or especially animation, ironically. So yeah, I've got like an hour and 47 worth of stuff here, so I'm just going to get into this. I'll fast forward when it's irrelevant or skip ahead. So let's go.
It really was an embarrassing movie to work on.
That's a good start.
Oh God, can you come by every week? I love it so much. Nobody ever tells the tea. Hello, I'm Jacqueline Coley. Welcome to a special episode of Seen on the Screen, brought to you by Making. I've seen now the live action, and I've been to Burke. And I think this is crazy that
It's interesting. I think in a bunch of these interviews, they do talk about the theme park. Surprise, surprise.
this 17-year journey where I get to go do all this stuff now started with you and a pen and a thought and a story.
And a book that already existed, to be fair.
So talk a little bit about your journey to How to Train Your Dragon. First starting at the animation, but then how you got to the live action.
The first animated movie came out of nowhere. Chris Sanders, who I had made Lilo and Stitch with, was working at DreamWorks on a movie called The Croods.
Yep.
The Croods, shout out to the Croods.
And he was called over the weekend by the then CEO of DreamWorks, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and said, I want you to step off of the movie you're on and step into How to Train Your Dragon because it's coming out in 15 months. And we need to start over. We need a new story. So previous versions had been very loyal, very faithful to the book, but the book was proving to be a little too small. And he wanted a bigger
Interesting. I'm glad he brings up the book.
audience and a bit more of a mature
Also appreciate the candidness of that.
story. So Chris called me and said, what are you doing right now? Because I've got a job for us to do. We need to write and direct this thing and get it into theaters within 15 months.
Wow.
So it was
15 months is wild.
we jumped right into the deep end, but it was pretty liberating because it's something that I consider to be in my wheelhouse. I love stories of young protagonists in over their heads in a world of fantasy or supernatural. And we had the great wish fulfillment of being able to bond with an
That's scary.
animal,
I guess.
especially a powerful, amazing animal that can take flight. So there was a lot in here to dig into.
Yeah. For folks that watch the podcast or not listening to us, we have redecorated in How to Train Your Dragon every which way, also including this brand new book,
Funko Pops, baby.
This is the art and making of DreamWorks.
How to Train Your Dragon.
It's a mix of wonderful set photography and a mix of artwork and some models and all the great disciplines that went into creating the world of Burke. I've only seen some early layouts of it, but yeah, it's
That looks pretty cool, actually.
incredible. You got some full layouts and then just a whole lot of behind the scenes.
Oh, wow, look at all
it's really
that.
incredible.
Oh,
A lot
this
of
movie
beautiful
is so
work
great.
went into it.
I can't wait. Again, because everything I'll make, every frame
Oh, that's for the new one. God damn
It
it.
does feel
like a picture. And even in live action, it's like it's all still there. Oh, I love it so much. I think that when people think
So one thing I always loved when the original came out was looking up, the 2D stuff. The concept art is so sick. I love this stuff. It's so cool looking. They really captured this style well in 3D. It's not like a Secret Life of Pets situation where the 2D art design for that film is actually really good, but just in the translation to 3D, it looks so freaky.
Well, the first conversations were in partnership with the studio. They made it clear that that's the story they wanted, not some sort of tale inspired by How to Train Your Dragon. And that meant that we could really lean into
You can tell he feels a certain way about that studio.
all of the things that live action promises. So you can lean into the subtlety of actors. You can lean into the grounded reality of real sets in a real world and all the immersiveness you could get from the
That's funny. Grounded real sets in a real world.
language of live action. But for me in particular, I think there is a core relationship at the center of this, which is about finding your own voice. And with Mason Thames, he really managed to capture what it's like to be an outsider and to feel that you have to change who you are in order to fit in order to be a success.
Because Jay Baruchel didn't do that. Is that who he's talking about? Yeah, he said Mason Thames, right?
Folks that have not gotten a chance to go to Epic and walk into Burke and really see your
Got to shout out the theme park, man.
story.
It's the real reason it exists.
Not
We used to joke that the margin of success for an animated movie was if you got an ice show. And so on Mulan, when they announced that they were going to do an ice show, we thought, oh, victory. But now, these days
you want a theme park.
it's a theme park.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So this Mario movie How to Train Your Dragon.
The stakes are higher.
Like, maybe like, that's cute, but I've got to ride. I've got 3 of them, actually.
I think the most difficult part of the transition is in animation, you have plenty, almost too much time to think about decisions because the process moves very slowly. And so you can second guess yourself to death. In live action, you prepare as much as you can, but you find yourself on a set. You have a number of shots to get done within a day, and then the set's gone. So you have to be in the moment, really responsive, and you have to...
Completely different skill sets, arguably. Sometimes they translate, like a Brad Bird or whatever.
If you can then put blinders on and let those 300 or so people disappear and just focus on the actors, magical things can happen where just within their own blocking and interplay and the silences and the nonverbal, all of that communication that's happening becomes something that brings truth and honesty. And so it doesn't feel like you're staging How to Train Your Dragon play with...
Damn. I feel like there's truth and honesty in the original trilogy, for sure. But those are 2 words I actually specifically would never apply to the new one.
That moment from the animation when Hiccup rides, that
Thrilling moment of flight that...
Oh, right, yeah, the best scene in the original movie. Go watch my review if you want to see like a direct comparison of why the new one just doesn't work nearly as well.
All of that in live action meant that we could also lean into live action cinematography. So we were watching movies and kind of taking, either in
What?
flight or on motorcycles or, Mission Impossible type movies. We were trying to get as much of that visceral, palpable, immersive, experiential camera work.
Well, unlike the Mission Impossible movies where there's an action shot that they can kind of do, we don't have dragons, unfortunately. So it's like all on a soundstage and almost completely CG.
Into this as possible.
And we had the ability to really showcase the physical island of Berk and the skies above it and the coastline surrounding it. So everything came together in that scene.
Yeah, why can't you? They already did that in the original, though.
And that meant building a giant animatronic version of Toothless that sat on top of these pistons, this big gimbal, so we could get movement in every direction. And as the dragon leans or banks or rolls or pitches and dives...
It'd be cool if they had B-roll of that. I'd like to see what that looks like.
So does
Mason. He moves with the creature, and all of these parts are independent. So the head is independent from the neck, from the body.
I can't wait for folks to feel it. I got to see it in like the best theater possible. I think it was thrilling. All right, let's dive to some of the things that
You've already felt it, though, as well.
Seen on the screen.
little reminder on popcorn buckets. This first one is quotes.
I might skip past this part. I'm more interested in talking about this movie, but
I'm going to give you a
I'll
quote
see what
from
he says.
the film, hopefully one that
You remember, and you're going to tell me if you remember which one it is. But with love
comes loss, son. It's part of the deal. Sometimes it hurts, but in the end, it's all worth it. There's no greater gift than love.
Ah, yes. That's from How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Hidden World.
The
Is it
Hidden
weird?
World.
Like you're like, I remember when this was written. I
Yeah.
remember every
So it's his own movies.
ounce of this, or actually, yeah, this is interesting. We don't talk to writers that often.
I think it was it was a way of keeping Jared Butler and Stoic alive in the third movie after he had passed. It was revisiting memories with young Hiccup and those pivotal life lessons that he was now living in the present. So Hiccup's wrestling with the idea of holding on to Toothless versus setting him free, and that was one of those moments. It's just a truth that we all have to deal with in our lives, which is, if you love something, may come a day where you lose that thing you love, but it's in the end all worth it.
Yeah, I love it. Next quote. Why
you stuck up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Right, Star Wars quotes are coming out. I am skipping. Right, let's go to the next one. This is a short, I think.
You once said that the original films were about growing up with your audience and how the original trilogy were a coming-of-age story. How did that affect your direction going into the live-action film?
Well, I think when Universal approached me about dipping back into this story with a live-action reimagining, I wanted to bring all of that, I guess, that sense of wonder and coming of age back into this. Like, I volunteered to be. I don't even like the trend of live action remakes, but
That is an amazing quote.
but I don't want to see somebody else's version of this, because
This must have been what the comments were talking about.
it's important to me to keep the heart and keep the soul and the sense of these characters in this world alive.
Yeah.
So
He didn't want anyone else to ruin it. I get that. But maybe, honestly, that's what like a live-action version needed. I don't know. It's just like a lose-lose to me. Like, you're remaking something like this. I guess you might as well get the dude who made the originals.
that was primarily, I wanted to carry that forward, make sure that this was such an important part of a lot of people's upbringing, and I wanted to make sure that we present something that is not trying to replace those animated movies, but
But it kind of does.
It offers like another spin on it that is hopefully equally rich with wonder and emotion.
See, that's the thing, is like, if it actually was that, if it was a different spin, I wouldn't conceptually be so against it, but it's almost shot for shot. Right, that was a funny short. So what's next? The How to Train Your Dragon cast on staying true to the original. Okay.
Biggest worry I had, honestly, I didn't want it to feel like these were a bunch of people in Viking costumes doing some sort of stage play.
Yeah.
The committed performances that the actors were bringing to the set eased that fear immediately.
You know, you started with this many years ago.
A decade of my life well spent, and I felt very proud of those movies, but I was ready for new characters and new worlds.
That's sad. And that's why I came back and went back to the old characters in the old world.
And then came this opportunity. Heart was a protective instinct. When they mentioned it, I thought, well, I know where the heart is, and I have a lot of love for these characters in this world. I would love to be able to preserve what I think fans know and love about this story in live action form.
Mark, producer extraordinaire, you've worked on so many beloved projects. What was it about How to Train Your Dragon that said this is going to be right?
Money, theme parks.
Two things, I think. The first was wanting to work with this wonderful artist because I understood and intuited how deeply personal this great big...
Let me look at what this guy's done. Mark Platt. Name kind of rings a bell. What have you produced, my friend? Cruella, La La Land, Trial of Chicago 7. Some good stuff in it. Wow. Snow White and the new How to Train Your Dragon. Wicked. Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid's got a 7.2. God damn it, man. Cruella. Thunder Force. Aladdin. So he's like the remake guy. Right, okay. Drive. How do you go from Drive to fucking Snow White? Scott Pilgrim? Interesting. So this guy's disgustingly rich. Oh, Legally Blonde.
The story, I think, very much for our time. The notion that there's a kid who sees the world different and sees a way of communicating.
They're acting like this didn't already exist. We've already had, it's already a story of our time, like in 2010.
And a father in a culture that sees that communication in a very, very different way.
My first conversation with Dean is, you made a perfect movie. Now what are we going to
do? Dude, bang on. Let's see what Bill Poper's shot. Did I just see The Matrix? Yo. What? I thought I recognized the name. Spider-Man 2 and The Matrix alone is wild. Unfrosted, Y2K. Right, so he's like a Marvel dude now, pretty much. Quantum Mania? Oh no. Shang-Chi. Alita Battle Angel had some cool shots in it. Baby Driver. Okay, so he wants that money. Jungle Book. Fair enough, I guess. World's End. Fire in the Sky, that's a random one. Army of Darkness.
I don't want to screw this up. But we can't make the same movie.
Right.
So how do we do this? How do we make people believe that they've seen How to Train Your Dragon, but it can't be exactly the same in the animated movie?
Oops.
Movie. Somebody picks somebody up by the lapels and throws them into the next room, or they drop out of the sky into a fight. When you start putting real people in real actions, what are those objective correlatives that are the same? Because
it's so much more vibrant when you put it side by side. I don't know what they're like trying to prove. It's really kind of proving my exact point.
A real actor has thought behind that. They go through an emotion and you see it, and they have one level and another level, and it takes time.
Dean, for you in telling, this...
That was really telling, hearing it from a cinematographer.
...version, what was important for you that you needed to get right?
The dragons, of course. We wanted the dragons to not only look photorealistic and credible in their movement, but also...
Why do they have to be photorealistic? Why can't we have stylized things?
...retain the personalities.
Like, look at that. This could be like anything.
It was a secret worry. I didn't want it to feel like these were a bunch of people in Viking costumes doing a stage play. I was afraid that Gerard Butler might walk onto set looking like Gerard Butler in a fake beard.
One thing that makes this movie work for so many people, the touch that Hiccup and Toothless has that first time. Talk about
how that came together, and can we just...
Like, what can they say? Like, we did it in 2010, and we did it again.
One thing that I wasn't quite prepared for was giving up the control that you have in animation, where we manipulate everything, even the dialogue that's given by the actors. We can cut it up and make our own Frankenstein version. In this case, and Bill was always by my side advising me to do this.
It's not... I get what you're saying, but Frankenstein seems harsh. That's part of like what makes it cool as a medium, is that you have that level of control, so you can make it as effective as that 2010 movie is.
We would set it up, we would figure out the blocking, we would walk the actors through it, and then he said, now you hand it off. Now we stay nimble and we pivot and we'll move lights and camera if we have to, but we're looking for truth.
We had the world's greatest storyboards, which is
which is the original film.
the first movie.
Dude, everything you're saying is so...
And it was daunting. And there are certain things that we tried to improve on. We tried to... When you interject realism into it, you actually have to see them struggle. You have to see their veins pop out and their muscles pop out.
You can see them struggle. I don't get this. It's feeding into that issue I have where it's seen as like, okay, it needs to be upgraded from animation to be a real movie, to be something that can be taken seriously.
We don't believe that it's almost impossible to film this thing. It's almost impossible for the camera to keep up with them. Nobody.
Yes, that's the point.
Even though I think we all knew, we talked about it from the beginning, that critically this is always going to be a bit polarizing because we had to pick a lane, and the lane we picked was a faithful retelling.
Damn. The easy lane, I would argue. It'd be hard to make something new.
With, additions where we could squeeze them in. And so you hear a bit of that too in the talkback, but for the most part it does seem like it's playing as we hoped.
Damn, he's like looking right at me.
So much for giving us How to Train Your Dragon, and thank you again.
Damn, that was the most interesting one so far,
everybody.
hearing from cinematographer especially. Okay, so what's next? How to Train Your Dragon, Dean DeBlois, on pitching himself to direct the live-action remake. Interesting.
How did it feel kind of coming after that big screening and the reception to that film for you? It was a relief.
It's the first time we showed it to an audience, and we were worried that maybe we didn't do enough or change enough or bring enough dimension. And
you could make a review just taking quotes of people who worked on it and have it be just as biting.
The fact that they were considering it just gave me this knee-jerk response of, I don't want to see someone else's version of this.
Here he is, he's saying it again.
Too protective of the characters and the world, and I know where the heart is. So I said, I get that.
So he's going to spend the next 10 years of his life just doing the same thing again in live action, though, this time. Isn't that sad? Where like he was saying how he wanted to move on to different stories and characters, but now he's been like stuck in this nostalgia loop. The Frank Zappa nostalgia loop? Man.
But I knew that I'd seen enough live action remakes to know that that's the common problem, that they lose a sense of what made
It's funny to be saying this while showing these shows.
Them special. And just being part of that first production and knowing where, knowing what the iterations brought us, the stuff that we had set aside.
I think this is going to be the example. This is going to be what studios are looking to, be like, hey, this works. This can work.
That is exactly my issue with it, what that dude just said. That's exactly my issue. Because this was the same conversation around when Jon Favreau did it with Jungle Book. And they're making hundreds of millions of bucks remaking their own movies. But again, at least that one was more different and there was more time between them.
And I love what you said in an interview recently where you're talking about, this isn't replacing what's already there. And I just love for you to...
Even though, like, when you search How to Train Your Dragon now, because that has the same name, it does kind of replace it in SEO stuff online.
To talk about, when you are approaching a live-action version of something that you're so close to...
Let me test that, actually. If I go to, like, a blank IMDb, see which comes up first. There we go. It's above it.
It started with that very first conversation when I was speaking to the heads of
Universal. I said, are we talking about
a story inspired by How to Train Your Dragon, or something that's closer to the books, or a different timeline, different characters? And they said, no, we want that story.
Look, so he's being really like clever about this, the way he's approaching this very like bureaucratic. This to me reads as him saying the studio was going to remake it no matter what I said. So I might as well do it and get my bag.
But with everything that live action could bring to it. In other words, more maturity, kind of broader audience. Let it...
More maturity. Yeah, man.
Be a nostalgic hug. Give a little more time and character development to some characters that were underserved, like Astrid.
The only thing I could see you actually doing is sow more seeds from the second and third movie into it. You could make it more of a cohesive trilogy, but they didn't really do that either.
In the first movie, and also just really dig into the
the experience, the immersive quality of the action, and especially the flying.
Yeah.
And really give it
Oh, there it is. Here's some of the B-roll.
its due. Like, make it feel, we weren't going to pull any punches.
Yes, this live action blue screen.
Hiccup was designed to be a pipsqueak in his world. And so production design wise in the animated film, we made everything larger than life. You know, the buildings, the trees, the people.
God, just from a base level, him saying that, like, that's so kind of core to the story. Something subconscious, and something that's so good about animation is you can use the character design to tell stories, and that's just immediately lost.
Though he's 15, is not a pipsqueak. He's an average kid at 15. That meant we didn't have to lean into as heavily this idea that he's a tiny kid in an oversized world.
Isn't that exactly? God, that's kind of the exact point, I thought, of the story.
He's just always thinking differently, and therefore is treated as somebody who's very different.
Which was the exact same character trait of the original. It was just reaffirmed through not only the dialogue and the story, but also the visuals.
My promise was, let's make these dragons feel like any dinosaur in Jurassic Park. They need to be that real. And so with the other dragons, it was easier.
Interesting choice.
But when it came to Toothless,
you get to leave them exactly the same for merch purposes.
The more we moved toward Black Panther, which is his inspiration, the less like Toothless he felt. You know,
Funny that.
When the eyes got smaller and the mouth got smaller, and we reshaped.
I wish they had done that. How scary Toothless would have been.
Shaped the head. All of a sudden, we were losing the character. And so even though he's got that big stitch.
So why does that only apply to him? You know, like that same logic applies to everything in the movie.
I think people are going to love it.
I mean, he's not wrong. God, these glaze sessions seem so awkward.
It's very different to animation where we craft the performance. We literally, cut up lines to make our favorite line and then put it in the hands of the animators. But this is sort of, you prep. But
I don't see what's different between an animator taking, in this case, audio instead of words on a script, and interpreting an audio performance through animation, how that's not its own equally valid form of expression.
But on top of those,
live action, everybody.
Will I be 85 years old and still making How to Train Your Dragon movies? I don't know. I do have other aspirations, but
man,
I really want your versions of these movies. But the one thing is we
already have them.
Keep the spirit of the book. This is about, the son of a chief who, can't do things right. And he and his dragon changed the world. He said, but we needed...
I've never actually read the original book, so I'd be curious just what level of different it is.
Yeah, I think the untethering from the very literal details of what you're trying to adapt and instead focusing on the spirit of what you're adapting frees you up to make something so cinematic. And something I really noticed...
The irony of her going down this... They're just talking about the original movie because there's nothing to say about this new one.
What I notice about those films now is how much of a live action sensibility they actually have from the beginning. I mean, you brought in Roger Deakins as a consulting cinematographer, legendary cinematographer.
I forgot about that. Damn.
And if you believe that people can lose limbs and can die in this world, it increases the peril, it increases the heroism. And that's why we leaned into a live-action aesthetic. Let's move away from cartoony convention and into something that feels gritty and real. And
that's so ironic. The original one is a better live-action film, and then the newer one is more cartoony and stupid. It's so strange that it's worked out that way.
And then I was going to move on to different worlds, different characters, different stories. And I did so for several years. Writing new stories and setting them up and writing scripts. None of them were getting made. They were all big and expensive.
That is telling. Oh my God, this is so sad to me, man. This studio system is so fucked.
Not going to try to replace the animated movie, but maybe offer a different view of it. And then the other side of it was just...
Also, I wonder if that's part of his thinking with kind of knowing it was going to be a huge financial success. It's so risk averse that he can use it as a jumping off point to be like, look, I know none of you respect or care about animation, but look, I did the live action How to Train Your Dragon. Now I can do what I really want to do, like some story that he's got buried in there that he hasn't been able to make.
We started to see the potential of okay, now we could really lean into
live action aesthetic and make it very immersive and a little more mature as well, like and develop the mythology a bit more, lean into characters that were perhaps a bit underserved out of time constraints.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real time crunch, that first one. Were there things immediately that you thought, oh, now I can go back, I can explore this, I can expand on this? Did you have like a little shopping list?
A couple, yes. One of the first ones was I thought, well, now we can explain why these warriors were on this island, kind of a task force. And they came to this island because they knew it was within spitting distance of a key dragon's nest. But here they are generations later and they still haven't found it. And then there were other things, like I love Astrid as...
That's all... I feel like that's already kind of implied from the world you're shown. Like, why do they even need to indulge in these questions that don't even need answering, or were already answered, technically?
But he was tasked with the same idea, the same challenge, which is, how do you take something that people know and love?
Also, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if he made more money from directing this one movie than the entire original trilogy. That would not surprise me at all.
The whole thing ignited for me with Star Wars, and then especially Empire Strikes Back, because it took something that I saw once. I grew up poor, so if we went to cinema, we saw a movie once.
I hear Star Wars, I go to the next one. Sorry, I can't do it anymore. Right, this is a short that looked interesting.
During an interview with IGN, How to Train Your Dragon director gave his comments about the new Lilo and Stitch remake. Just to give context, director Dana Blois
I like that jump.
directed the original Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon. The difference being is that he was brought back to do the live action remake, but not Lilo and Stitch's. And here's what he had to say on the matter.
I have not seen the new one. I actually wasn't asked to be involved at all. I'm curious to know what they did, if they were able to preserve the heart and soul of it, but
they didn't.
That's the key difference between these two, is that this is the first time a studio has asked the original filmmaker to come back and make the live action version. And so, for better or worse, How to Train Your Dragon is kind of a first in that way.
Damn, throwing stones.
I hope that people appreciate that there is a continuity of love for the character.
That's so funny that they don't even, like, not as a producer role, not even a phone call for, like, advice or anything like that. That's so insulting.
In the story that gets carried forward, as opposed to someone else coming in that doesn't.
Disney is, God, they're evil.
Have that.
So excited to talk about the film. I want to kick things off with you, Dean.
I love how awkward these are. It's like spine chilling.
Because I quit time looking at the dragon and then
We've heard him say this like 28 times. But
Mason, for example, when he's riding Toothless, would move with the movement of Toothless, whether he was rising or dipping or banking, and we had control over all of that to try to recreate the shots that we had carefully planned.
Would have been cool if, like Jurassic Park, they did have some puppetry, you know?
Performance. I'd seen her on The Last of Us, like many others, and she was so electrifying and mesmerizing in that short.
Yeah, I forgot she was in The Last of Us.
Astrid kind of looks down on him because she resents the fact that he is given opportunities and has a kind of like special role and special place in work, despite the fact that like she works so hard and is doing so much. And I think that to have a drive like that of like...
That's the irony, is that she's the Nepo baby, but she's playing the character in the movie that's upset by Hiccup, the Nepo baby.
needing to prove yourself?
I always feel like we do everything we can to get the movie halfway there. And then we hand it to a composer and let them take it the rest of the way, because what they do with music transcends dialogue. And it goes...
Yes, that's true. That's extremely true. Right, that's it. I'll try and take out any repetition, but I feel like I learned some things in there, especially from the cinematographer. That was very eye-opening. Hope you enjoyed going through this with me, and I'll see you on the next vid. Bye!